The wind cut through the frozen night like a blade, carrying with it the kind of silence that only lonely places understand. Snow drifted across the empty roadside shelter where a woman in a worn coat sat clutching a small medical bag to her chest, as if it were the last piece of her identity left in the world. Headlights pierced through the storm, slowing as they caught sight of her fragile figure beneath the flickering streetlight. What happened next would change two broken lives forever. And before we begin, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that happen when strangers choose compassion, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Chief Petty Officer Daniel Hayes had survived war zones that most people only saw in headlines. A decorated Navy SEAL, he had faced gunfire, loss, and the unbearable weight of responsibility. But nothing had prepared him for the emptiness waiting for him back home. His wife had left during his last deployment, unable to endure the fear of never knowing if he would return. The house he came back to was silent, echoing with absence. Even his loyal German shepherd, Max, sensed the hollowness, pacing restlessly from room to room as if searching for what used to be there. That night, Daniel wasn't looking for anyone. He had driven aimlessly, trying to outrun the memories that crept in whenever the world grew quiet. Then he saw her. She looked too young to carry that much exhaustion in her eyes. Her name was Emily Carter, once a dedicated nurse at the city hospital. She had spent years caring for strangers, working double shifts, holding trembling hands in emergency rooms. But when budget cuts came, her position disappeared. Medical bills from her late mother's illness had drained her savings. Rent went unpaid. Friends promised help but had families of their own. One eviction notice later, she found herself with nothing but her nursing bag and the skills no one seemed willing to hire anymore. Daniel almost drove past. He had learned not to interfere, not to get involved. Yet something about the way she sat there, trying to shield herself from the cold with dignity rather than desperation, stopped him. Max barked softly from the back seat, a low, uncertain sound. Daniel parked. Snow crunched under his boots as he approached. Emily looked up, wary but too tired to run. There was no dramatic rescue, no instant trust. Only two strangers standing in a storm, both carrying invisible wounds. Daniel offered her a ride to the nearest shelter. She hesitated, pride battling necessity, but the cold was merciless. Inside the truck, silence filled the space between them. Max shifted forward, resting his head gently on Emily's knee. It was the first warmth she had felt in days. She didn't cry then. Nurses are trained to hold themselves together. The shelter was overcrowded, its dim lights revealing rows of cots already claimed. The staff shook their heads apologetically. No space tonight. Emily thanked Daniel for the ride and stepped back into the snow as if accepting that this was simply her new reality. That was the moment something inside him broke open. Daniel knew what it meant to fight battles alone. He knew the crushing weight of coming home to emptiness. He looked at her and saw not a burden, but a mirror. In a voice steadier than he felt, he told her that he needed someone to stay, and she needed a home. The words hung in the cold air, simple yet life-altering. Bringing a stranger home was reckless. His military training screamed at him about caution. But his heart, battered and tired of silence, told him that sometimes survival isn't about tactics. It's about connection. The first weeks were awkward. Emily slept in the guest room, careful not to disturb anything. She spent her days searching for work, determined not to become dependent. Daniel left early for the base and returned to find small changes in the house. The kitchen was organized. The dusty shelves were wiped clean. For the first time in months, dinner simmered on the stove. Max followed Emily everywhere, his tail wagging with a happiness Daniel hadn't seen since before his deployment. Yet healing is never instant. Nightmares woke Daniel in cold sweats. Some nights he would find himself on the floor, reliving explosions only he could hear. Emily never asked for details he wasn't ready to share. Instead, she would sit quietly nearby, her presence steady and grounding. She understood trauma in a way only a nurse could. Not from textbooks, but from witnessing pain and choosing compassion anyway. Gradually, their walls lowered. Emily secured part-time work at a local clinic after Daniel recommended her to a friend. She walked through the door that first day in borrowed confidence, returning with a spark in her eyes that had been missing. Daniel noticed how the house felt warmer, not because of the heating, but because laughter had returned to its rooms. One evening, as snow began to fall again, they stood by the window watching Max chase flakes in the yard. Daniel realized he wasn't counting the hours until his next deployment. He was thinking about coming back. About protecting not just a country, but a home that no longer felt empty. Emily, too, had changed. The woman who once clutched her bag on a frozen bench now moved with quiet strength. She had found more than shelter, she had found belonging. And Daniel had discovered that strength is not only measured in missions completed, but in the courage to open your door to someone else's storm. If this story has touched your heart so far, take a moment to comment, "Kindness still wins," below and let us know where you're watching from. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who need hope. In the end, there was no grand speech, no dramatic declaration. Just two souls who had been drifting in different storms, choosing to anchor each other. The house that once echoed with silence now held the simple music of shared meals, quiet conversations, and the steady breathing of a loyal dog at their feet. Sometimes heroes don't rescue people from burning buildings. Sometimes they stop their truck in the snow. And sometimes the bravest thing a warrior can say is that he needs someone to stay. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, do you believe a single act of kindness can change a life?